Nikki Haley is trying to make the case that Republicans are really running against Kamala Harris in 2024, not Joe Biden. Watch this.
My concern is we cannot have Kamala Harris as president. We can't chance this. We have to make sure that we have a new generational leader that's going to bring in not only Republicans, but we're going to pull back the independents. We're going to bring back in the suburban women. We're going to bring in Hispanics. We're going to bring in the Asian community. We have to make sure we win this, because the thought of Kamala Harris being president should send a chill up every American spine.
Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas, joining me now. Governor, great to see you. Thanks for being here. What do you think about focusing on Vice President Kamala Harris? Is that a good idea or not?
Well, I think she's half right. I think there's a real good chance that we may need to worry about Kamala Harris. But here's the real issue. We're not running against her. We're not even running against Joe Biden. We're running against the corruption that has permeated this administration. We're running against a double justice system. We're running against an open border. We're running against a failed policy in the Middle East. We're running against an administration that has jacked up inflation to the point that the average American family is losing $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year. That's money out of the pockets of an American family. We're running against a philosophy that the Democrats have brought to power that is destroying this country and destroying the kitchen tables of American families from east to west coast.
So you're
and
talking,
if we focus only on the personalities, we're going to be in trouble.
That's what I was saying. You say focus on the policies, not on the personalities. But
yes.
At the same time, you know how Americans are. They do, going back to JFK, who they just liked and voted for because they liked, or Ronald Reagan, who they liked and liked his personality. There is a place for personality in politics, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's incredibly important that we focus on the fact that Kamala Harris can't put a sentence together. We'll have plenty of opportunities if, in fact, she ends up being the nominee or if she's the VP nominee to Biden. We're going to have plenty of visuals, plenty of audio examples of why they're both incompetent. But overall, we still have to keep focused on that these are the two people who gave us these policies that are failing America and American families, and their ability to put gas in their car, food on their table, and money in the bank. And when it gets down to it, Americans have to ask themselves, do I want 4 more years of this? And I would like to think the answer is not just no, but you know what no.
By the way, I got to throw another personality into this who partly won on her personality. That's your daughter. Sarah has this wonderful personality. You could see it. She was just honest, and she has a lot of integrity. You could see it when she was working for the previous administration. Didn't that help her get elected governor of the state of Arkansas?
Oh, I think without a doubt it did. She's very warm and friendly and kind, and when people meet her in person, they find her to be very approachable. And so, of course it does. Now, David, let me be fair. I'm as objective about Sarah as the New York Times is about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You asked me a question about her.
That was
I have
to ask. That was I have to say that was a softball question. I understand that, but I just wanted to bring out the point and ask whether there is any personality that showed up in the last debate last week that you thought had a winning political personality on the Republican side.
I think a lot of people have talked about Vivek. He was energetic. He showed youth. There's some policy issues that he's going to have to hone up on, particularly Israel. But overall, he presented himself well, and I thought he comported himself especially well against Chris Christie, who tried to attack him. And he said that great line, I thought was the line of the debate, would you like to come over and hug me like you did Obama?
A lot of people missed that line. It was an important line. It was a killer line. We're getting close to the second debate, Fox Business debate on September 27th. What do you think the candidates learned from the first debate that they may change their tack somewhat for the second debate?
Tell their consultants to go to you-know-where and go out there and be who they are. Quit letting a consultant fill their heads with a bunch of index cards. Go out there with some authenticity.
Did that happen to you? Forgive me for interrupting, but when you were running for president, did you get that? Was there ever a point where you said to your assistants and those who were advising you, just F off?
I didn't use that exact language, but basically I told him from the beginning, don't try to make me something I'm not. I am who I am. I will win or lose by my own answers, and I want to go out there and be very candid, transparent, but I want to be authentic. I think it's very important that people hear a candidate, not some consultant who is almost channeling through the candidate's mouth and brain. And so, I saw some of that in the last debate. You could almost see these people reading off the back of their head something that had been imprinted there. Forget that stuff.
By
Go
the way,
and have a
don't
good
you
time.
think?
Be relaxed.
Don't you think that's the biggest problem that DeSantis has right now? I mean, it's the first time he'd run for president. It really seems like he's being directed in too much of a mechanical way by outsiders.
Yeah, he didn't have a bad night, but it was not the breakthrough night. And that was true of the overall debate. Nobody completely catapulted ahead, but nobody collapsed either. The closest thing I thought was a missed opportunity, maybe an unforced error, when Asa Hutchinson, who is my friend, who's maybe the most qualified person on that stage in terms of resume, but when he called January 6th an insurrection and basically co-opted the language of Liz Cheney and the other Democrats, I thought that was a very unfortunate move on his part to call it that. It was not an insurrection. A protest that became a riot? Yeah. Horrible? Yeah. Insurrection? Not a chance.
Mike Huckabee, great to see you. Give our best to Sarah when you see her. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.